Hi, I'm Jen Rubin, editor-in-chief of The Contrarian. I'm delighted to welcome a new congressman from the Alabama 2nd, Shomari Figures. Welcome, Congressman.
Hey, welcome. Thank you, Jen. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's delightful to be here. Tell us how you got to Congress. What is new about your district and how did it come to be?
Look, and it's so timely. We just got back from Selma, marking the 60th anniversary of the Bloody Sunday, where John Lewis and so many other freedom marchers, Amelia Boynton Robinson and others, crossed the bridge in an act that ultimately led to the Voting Rights Act. It is under that act that a lawsuit was brought to challenge the way that the district lines were drawn in the state of Alabama after the last census. And under that act, the courts found that there was discrimination in how they drew the lines, that African Americans represent almost a third of the population, but only had the opportunity to influence the outcome of one of 7 congressional districts. That preliminary finding went up to the Supreme Court, and they upheld it. And they forced the state and ultimately the court to redraw a new district. And so now they've created one where an African American candidate has a legitimate opportunity to win the district, a district that's about 48% black, 6% white. And we were fortunate enough to be elected in the most recent election in November.
Well, congratulations, I think, because now you join the House of Representatives, which seems to be in a bit of disarray. Have you heard anything from the Republicans as to whether they will bring to the floor and have the votes to keep the government open?
We're expecting them to bring a measure to the floor, possibly tonight, but more likely tomorrow, or certainly by Wednesday. We don't think they have the votes to pass it because it is a measure that we simply cannot support as Democrats based on what's been presented. Not a clean, what they call a CR, continuing resolution. It is basically a Republican mini budget. They have basically said, hey, we want a CR, but we want to make 100 pages worth of cuts to it. And a traditional CR is just a few pages. And so, we hope that throughout the process, the committee process tonight, and maybe some more negotiations at the leadership levels, that we can get to something that we can support to keep the government open. But right now, we don't think this is going to be something we can support.
How could you even make a deal with these folks, given that Elon Musk, after you have a legal budget already, takes out his chainsaw and starts hacking away, really rendering the Republicans in the House and the Senate irrelevant? How do you know any deal would actually stick?
Yeah, and that's the part that we have to be mindful of in terms of what we're pushing in this budget package. Because we've seen how they treat it, we've seen how they treat congressional authority, and ultimately the courts are involved and will make a determination. But we still have to do everything that we can to pass a budget that respects the priorities of the American people.
The budget that they envision, at least for next year, appears to take a huge chunk out of Medicaid, $800 billion, and go through another round of tax cuts that may very well disproportionately benefit the very rich. How would this affect your district back in Alabama?
I have one of the poorest districts in the country. 7 out of the 15 poorest counties in the state of Alabama are in my district, which means 7 of the poorest counties in America are in my district. We have a high percentage of Medicaid recipients in my district and across the state of Alabama. We have a high degree of people children primarily, that receive SNAP benefits, which are also on the chopping block. And so it will disproportionately impact the people in my communities that I represent, and something that we have to stand up against because we simply cannot afford to make the least of these suffer at the expense of the people who make the most money in this country. We simply cannot do that.
The other policy that Trump seems to be following is tariffs. Alabama has a lot of agriculture. What do the tariffs or even the threat of tariffs do in Alabama? We've already seen the stock market tank over several consecutive days. What does this do for your agricultural community in Alabama?
Yeah, well, the agriculture committee, just like the manufacturing community that we have, industries that we have in our state, they're both negatively impacted by this, as they were last time in the Trump administration. So sadly, we've seen this song and dance before, but at the end of the day, it's going to cost businesses more to produce, it's going to cost consumers more to purchase, and it's going to cost those businesses that export their goods into foreign markets, particularly China and Mexico and Canada. It's going to cost them more to be able to sell their product in other countries. So it's a net negative impact for people in my district, people across the state, and certainly for our farmers and our manufacturing industries in the state of Alabama.
Republicans are proposing is not popular. And the way we know that is they're now hiding from the voters. They're saying they're not going to do any kind of town halls. What do you think of that? And what is your response?
Look, part of the obligation, I think, of being an elected member of Congress is to speak to people directly, to answer the tough questions as well as the easy questions. You owe people an explanation on how you feel and what you're working on and what your priorities are. We just did a town hall myself a few nights ago in Montgomery, Alabama, where we spoke to people who, had varying degrees of passion. Right? They agreed with us on some issues and didn't agree with us on other issues. But we, as members of Congress, we owe it to the same people we asked to vote for us to stand before them and take the fire, as they say, and answer their questions. So I think it's irresponsible, and I think it's disrespectful to voters to have a categorical policy where you're just not going to talk to them in person.
Any plans to go into some of the Republican districts, even though you're not their representative, so at least they can see some member of Congress come around their neighborhood, their district?
I mean, we'll stay in our district, but we're going across. I have 13 counties that make up my district. We didn't win every single county. The Republican candidate in the race won some of those counties. We're not straying away from those counties. We've visited almost every county in my district since we've been in office over the past 2 months. We'll be getting to the other ones soon, and we'll give them the opportunity to come and talk with us as well.
Very good. Last question as we reach the end of our time. The administration, in their zeal to deport anybody they can find, has arrested, transferred to a facility in Louisiana, a individual who has a green card legally here, was leading or involved in allegedly protests at Columbia University. His wife is very soon to have a child. He's not been in communication with them or his lawyers. What's your reaction to what seems to be like a atrocious violation of civil liberties and the First Amendment?
I unfortunately have not been able to dive into the details of the case. I did see some headlines flashing on a couple of screens that I was passing by, but I haven't looked into the details of it. But at the end of the day, look, I think this is symbolic of the fear that people have of the immigration enforcement policy of this administration, and it's one that is not grounded in actual understanding and actual of the law. And so we have to make sure that the enforcement complies with the law. If the gentleman is here legally and has done nothing to violate the status or conditions of him being here, then I don't think he should be in custody at all. But at the end of the day, we have to continue to do everything that we can to stand up for immigrant rights. We've sponsored the DREAM Act, and we'll continue to, we'll continue to work to make sure that we can have a lawful immigration system here that respects the rights of people here, that does not forget the founding principles from how this country was founded.
Well, it's refreshing to hear a representative from Alabama so strongly defend the Constitution. I think the Supreme Court may have made a wise decision in letting the people of Alabama actually pick their representatives. So welcome to Washington, D.C. I'm not sure you're going to enjoy every day of it, but we're very glad to have you. And we will definitely have you back soon to talk about the goings on in the Congress. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well, Jen, thanks for having us.